Hi everyone, and welcome to this unit's virtual classroom where you will learn how to manage large volumes of data. The objectives for this unit are to learn how to freeze rows and columns, print large data sets, understand table design, create a table, apply a table style, sort and filter data, use structured references and a total row, apply conditional formatting, create a new rule, and sort and filter using conditional formatting. So far, you've worked with worksheets that contain small data sets, which is a collection of structured related data in columns and rows. In reality, you'll probably work with large data sets consisting of hundreds or thousands of rows and columns of data. When you work with small data, you can usually view most or all of the data without scrolling. However, when you work with large data sets, column and row labels scroll off screen when you scroll through the worksheet. Let's begin by opening up Excel Microsoft 2010, starting with a worksheet that has a large amount of data. When you scroll to parts of a data set not initially visible, some rows and columns disappear from view. So as you can see from the worksheet in front of you, as I scroll to the bottom, you'll notice that the labels disappear. When the row and column labels scroll off the screen, you may not remember what each column represents. You can, however, keep the labels on screen by freezing them. Freezing is the process of keeping rows and/or columns visible on screen at all times when you scroll through a large data set. To freeze labels from scrolling off screen, click the View tab, click Freeze Panes in the window group, and then select a freeze option. There are three freeze options. Freeze Panes, which keeps both rows and columns above and to the left of the active cell visible as you scroll through a worksheet. Freeze the top row, which keeps only the top row visible as you scroll through a worksheet. And freeze the first column, which keeps only the first column visible as you scroll through the worksheet. Now before you select the freeze panes, you must select the proper cell. So if you were to freeze the first 4 rows and the first 2 columns, you would not select them. So a majority of you will select and then hold your control key and select. This is incorrect. In order to freeze the first 4 rows and the first 2 columns, we must make the active cell 1 row below and 1 column to the right of the row and columns that you want to freeze. So for this example, again, the first 4 rows and the first 2 columns, I would make C5 my active cell. Once C5 is active, I click on View, Freeze Panes, Freeze Panes. And you'll notice that the 4 rows and the 2 columns are now frozen. To unlock the rows and columns from remaining on screen as you scroll, we click the Freeze Panes and unfreeze. And then you'll notice that everything is back to the original state. So let's do another example, as this is very important. If you wanted to freeze only the first 4 rows, we would make A5 our active cell, freeze panes, and you will notice that the 4 rows are frozen. Again, to unlock, freeze panes, unfreeze panes. The next thing to discuss is printing large data sets. Printing all or parts of a large data set presents special challenges. For a large data set, some columns and rows may print on several pages, which can prove difficult when someone's trying to analyze the data as they're trying to read, which doesn't contain the proper columns and rows because they're on separate different papers. To prevent wasting paper, always preview your large data sets before you print. The Page Layout tab contains many options to help you prepare large data sets and prints. You should already know how to change page orientation, set different margins, and adjust the scaling. In addition, you can also manage your page breaks, set the print area, and the print titles. Based on the paper size, orientation, margins, and other settings, Excel identifies how much data can print on one page. Then it displays a page break indicating where data will start on another printed page. To identify where these automatic page breaks will occur, click the page break preview on the status bar or in the workbook group on the View tab. So by clicking on View, and going to page break preview, it will definitely show me where my page breaks are already located. You will also notice that Excel displays watermarks such as page 1, page 2, page 3 to let you know where the pages and the data will be printed. To remove a manual page break, the easiest way is to click the dotted line, so you'll notice that my arrow turns to a double arrow, and dragging it to the far right. This will remove the page break and allow every data to be printed on page 1. Now be careful when you do this because your data will print very, very small. Another option is to set and clear a print area. The default settings send an entire data set on the active worksheet to the printer. However, you might want to print only part of the worksheet data. For example, you might want to print an input area only or transactions that occurred on a particular date. You can set the print area, which is the range of cells that will print only. So to do this, on our page layout tab, select the cells we want to print. So say I want to print from A1 to say K30, so I've selected it. And under my print area, I'm going to say set print area. You'll notice that where I've selected is white and everything else is grayed out. So the only part that will print is what has the white background. To clear this, click on print area and clear print area. And this will clear it and return everything back to the original state. Now when you print large worksheets, you have to make sure that every column and row contains a descriptive label on each page. So as you can see from the preview before you, we have a page 1 and we have a page 2. If we were to print it just like this, our page 2 would not have the descriptive labels. So anyone trying to analyze your data from the printout would not understand what this data actually refers to. So we must make sure that the labels print on the page 2 and every other page after that. So if we open up our page setup dialog box and go to our sheet tab, you'll notice that it has rows to repeat at top and columns to repeat at left. So if I wanted columns to repeat, I can click on the columns and say I want columns A and B. We can automatically change it in our box and type in B. And then for the rows to repeat, I would want the title all the way to our column identifiers. So we would want columns 1 to 5. You'll see that rows to repeat is 1 to 5, columns to repeat is A to B. We can also control the page order by which way the page order is to be printed. And by clicking OK, you'll notice that there's nothing shown on here, but if we were to go to our print preview, you would see here's page 1 and there's page 2, and you'll notice that the information stays at the top. Now when working with large amount of data, it's very important to be organized. And to do so, it's very important to know how to create a table within your worksheet. A table is an area in the worksheet that contains rows and columns of related data formatted to enable data management and analysis. So for example, your column and headings that remain on screen during scrolling without having to use your freeze panes. You can filter and sort very easily, and you can use a calculated total row to help you calculate your totals a lot easier. So going back to our worksheet and changing our view back to normal. Now since the worksheet in front of us is already structured correctly, we can easily create a table. So to create a table from an existing data to the following, we're going to click within the existing range of data, so we don't have to select it, we can just click inside. We're going to click the insert and choose table. And you'll notice that Excel automatically knows the data that we want selected for our table. Now if Excel does not correctly predict the range, we can definitely reselect the data. That is not a problem. But we also want to make sure to tell Excel that your table does have headers, and in this case we do, because this is where our columns are going to be easily organized. By clicking OK, you'll notice that it instantly gives you a design, and we have arrows on each of our column identifiers. Now, by turning your worksheet into a table, we're providing a structured organization of data in columns and rows. So each column represents a field, which is an individual piece of data, so such as last name or quantity sold. In this case, each field would be a transaction number, a date, data entry, etc. Each row in Excel represents a record, which is a complete set of data for an entity. So for example, in line 6, you'll see the transaction number 2012-001 has the complete set of data as far as date, data entry, sales rep last name, manufacturer, payment type, transaction, and the amount. Now it's important to understand fields and records, and you will learn more about this when you actually learn Access in your third semester. Once you've created the table, you can now change the style. On the Table Tools Design tab, you have Table Styles, and you have definitely different styles that you can choose from. Adding, editing, and deleting records is exactly the same way as we've already learned on how to add and delete rows and columns from our spreadsheets. Another option, though, is how to remove duplicate rows. You might accidentally enter a duplicate record in a table, which can give false results when totaling or performing other calculations on your data set. For a small table, you might be able to detect your duplicate records by scanning the data, but for large tables, it might be more difficult to identify duplicate records by simply scanning the table with the eye. So to remove duplicate records, we're going to click within the table and then click the Design tab. And then you'll notice on the left it says Remove Duplicates. By clicking on it, it's asking us which columns do we want them to look. We're going to say Select All and click OK. And you'll notice that one duplicate value was found and they have removed it. The table option also makes it easier to understand and work when you try to organize the data. So one thing you can do is to sort your information. Sorting arranges records by the value of one or more fields within a table. You can sort your data by one or more columns. To sort by only one column, we can use the following method, which is by clicking the arrow. So if we wanted to organize or sort by the transaction number, we can sort A to Z, sort Z to A, or we can sort by color, which is a custom sort. By clicking Sort A to Z, you'll notice that it now is in numerical order. If I want to sort the date, again, I can sort from oldest to newest or newest to oldest. If I want to sort by more, on the data option, I can click on Sort, and it's going to ask me to sort by, let's say, date. I can add a level, and I can say sort then by payment type, and I can even add another level and say sort by amount. And then I can choose how I want it. And click OK, and it sorts the data very easily. There also may be a time where you might want to only show particular records. This is called filtering. Filtering is the process of specifying conditions to display only those records that meet certain conditions. So for example, you might want to filter the data to show transactions only by the sales rep's first name, Deanne. So in this case, we can do sales rep first name. Down here, we're going to say, take the Select All, and I only want to see Deanne's records. By clicking OK, you'll notice that everything is filtered out, and the only thing displayed are Deanne McGuire's records. To clear the filter, we can either click on the Data tab and choose Filter, or we could have chosen on the arrows and clicked on the arrows. Another filter option is text filter, so we can say equals, does not equal, begins with, ends with, contains, does not contain, or we can even create our own custom filter. So if I wanted to use a text filter and say begins with, drop down my arrow and choose, let's say, Ingersoll and click OK, you'll notice that now just the Grant Ingersoll records appear. We can do the same with a number filter. So if I wanted to see Ingersoll's records, the number filters, but I wanted greater than or equal to let's say 10,000. So I type in 10,000, click OK, and you'll notice that only the records for Grant Ingersoll of greater than 10,000 would appear. And again, by clearing our data, click on the arrow and clear filter, and on the amount, clear filter, and everything returns back to its original state. Excel also aids you in quantitative analysis. Your value to an organization increases with your ability to create sophisticated formulas, aggregate data in a meaningful way, and interpret those results. Although you can create complex formulas that you understand, you should strive to create formulas that other people can understand. Creating easy-to-read formulas helps you present self-documenting formulas that require less explanation on your part. When you create formulas for tables, you can use a built-in functionality called structured references and total rows. A structured reference is a tag or use of table elements such as a column heading as a reference in a formula. So up until now, we have used cell addresses or name ranges. Now we're going to use structured references, which use the column headings or field names. In order to do this, a structured reference requires brackets around column headings or field names, such as equal amount minus down payment. The amount would be in square brackets and down payment would be in square brackets. So if in our spreadsheet in front of us, if we were to figure out the amount owed, we can just do equal because every formula, whether it's a structured reference or not, begins with an equal sign. If we click on our table amount, you'll notice that in the formula bar it says equal bracket at amount bracket minus our down payment, and again you'll notice that the down payment, this is called a structured reference. It's the same as using cell addresses. By clicking on enter, it automatically fills it in for you all the way to the bottom of your sheet. Another way to make your data more meaningful is to create a total row, which appears below the last row of records in an Excel table and enables you to display summary statistics such as sum of values displayed in columns. To create this, let's scroll to the bottom of our data, and on the Design tab you will see an option called Total Row. By clicking on the total row, it appears at the very bottom. By clicking on one of the cells, you'll notice that an arrow appears, and by clicking on the arrow we can choose which we want. So do we want average? It gives us the average. Do we want to do sum? Then it will do the sum. If we want a whole number, we would choose our sum or average, and then we would take out all of our decimals to make a whole number. To help your audience that much more to analyze your data, you can use something called conditional formatting. It helps you and your audience understand a data set better because it adds visual elements to your cells. So on the Home tab, you'll notice an option called conditional formatting, and it allows you to highlight cell rules, doing top and bottom rules. You can choose data bars, color scales, icon sets, and these are all predefined. If you want to create your new rule, you can click on New Rule, you can clear rules, or you can manage the rules. Conditional formatting is very similar to an if statement, just without inputting the function. So to apply the highlight cell rules, we're first going to select our data. So let's select our amount, choose conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and we will say greater than, and let's choose 15,000. We can then choose our formatting. What do we want? Anything greater than 15,000. These are predefined formats, or we can choose custom formatting and choose our own custom formatting, whether it be the color of the cell, whether we want to add a border, or even add a fill. And you'll notice that all the data that is listed under the amounts that's greater than 15,000 is now applied to the formatting that I chose. Again, to display the other options, we can again select our data, choose conditional formattings, and choose a data bar. Or if we want an icon set, select our data, conditional formatting, and let's choose our arrows. To clear the conditional formatting, if we highlight our cells, conditional formatting and clear rule, and clear from selected cells. Or we can clear the rules from the entire sheet. This one we're just going to do selected cells. And let's create a new rule. So if we click on new rule, a dialog box appears and asking us what we want. So we're going to say format only cells that contain. We'll say cell values are greater than or equal to, and again we'll type in our 15,000, and then we choose our formatting, and we can choose a yellow fill with, let's say, a bold format. Click OK and click OK, and a new rule has just been initiated. This concludes this unit's virtual classroom. Please make sure to complete the remainder of your exercises in this unit's folder.